You're listening to episode 790 of a VerySpatial podcast, July 26, 2026. Hello and welcome to a VerySpatial podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Sue.
I'm Barb.
And this is Frank.
And this week we're going to be talking to someone from the Esri UC. I haven't decided which interview to go with yet, but it'll be in there. But first, some news.
So Mozambique has unveiled a geospatial platform to accelerate their broadband coverage across their country. It's pretty neat because it allows the public to view and compare all the mobile services availability, look for gaps, and it's an initiative to try to get 95% coverage by 2030 and 99% network availability by 2030. So this is pretty ambitious.
Kind of like the broadband coverage Frank had to be involved with back in the day at the tech center.
Yeah, but it didn't reach the goals of Mozambique, which, is sad.
Yeah, I was interested in it because, the coverage like this depends on things like topography and just the land area. And Mozambique also has to deal with being coastal and about the size of Texas. I think bigger than Texas. So a pretty big area to cover with a lot of different variety in their topography.
It's ambitious.
Didn't get a chance to interview them while we were at the Esri UC, but SparkFun, who has had tons of DIY and open source and Arduino and those type of GNSS toys, fun stuff, things we don't necessarily think of as day-to-day work items, has spun out SparkPNT, which is intended to be day-to-day work items. So another player in the professional GNSS arena.
I'm curious. Anyone want to guess how quickly it'll be before they get acquired?
They haven't been yet. They've been doing their GNSS stuff for, over a decade, I think. I remember seeing SparkFun for a long time.
Well, now they're spun off into like you said, a professional, okay, this is a production level thingamabob. And the thing that what's the word I'm looking for? I'm gonna say I can't decide if it's concern or interest. Me is that the number of acquisitions since we've been doing this podcast of all these sort of things, and I'm kind of
jaded.
I guess that's it, but I'm kind of curious, is that where we're headed in this space towards a singularity, if you will, like the GNSS company that just, this is the thing?
I don't think we'll ever get to that, but because you got not just the ones that are heavily involved in the US, like Trimble and I'm blanking right now, Jupiter and SparkPNT and other ones that I literally walked through various booths of many of them besides these last week, but there are multiple ones. And so the technology, because you do have, this move into multiple different constellations and being able to use different correction signals and all of that, no one has completely overlapped and started buying everybody else yet. So I get where you're coming from with the jadedness, but at the same time, this is one of those areas that has remained fairly
competitive and robust.
Yeah, I think that might be the way to put it.
And I think one of the reasons is, because of their belief in like the own, upgrade, repair. And I sort of replaced that with, the type of environment where you've been in, where people just have all this stuff and they're tinkering and you're able to do things, which we're still in an area where people can just, touch and do things more than you think.
Yeah, and I think that this is the sort of thing too that would appeal to those who are in fact building their own. Maybe they want to go a little further than their autonomous mower that can do things, and so there's still going to be that group that will want to be able to assemble their own open source version. So,
but other companies, I finally started remembering them. Bad Elf, MLID, those weren't even at the UC. There are lots that are out there that just keep moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, in the remote sensing space, we've seen a lot more movement towards storefronts. And we kind of have had that a little bit over time, but over the last couple of years, I think we've really started to see those not open access, but the private satellite firms being a little bit more connected to some of these storefronts. And so whenever we look at something like OpenCosmos, who has their OpenConstellation 1.0, their goal is to, make it easier to get access quickly to recent data sets. And so looking at, 48-hour response times whenever you put in a request for data and those type of things. And that's fairly quick. The other news item that kind of parallels this one is SkyFi, who I did talk to, but didn't get a chance to do an interview because whenever I came back, they were busy all the time. And so they were just never quiet enough for me to go back up to and ask for another interview or to ask for an interview. But they've set up a storefront where they're pulling from a lot of different proprietary satellite data providers so that, you're not just somebody who's on contract with one of those providers. You can go and get a single image or a few images here and there as you want to. And so SkyFi gives you that. And now they've also implemented an MCP, as we've been talking about recently. And so if you have your agent pulling in data from various sources, they can go out, grab the data you need, pull it into your geospatial workflow. So there's a couple of, imagery related items.
This feels like one of those no-brainer things that also is, why was this not a no-brainer before? Because for the most part, when it comes to imagery acquisitions, most of those companies were traditionally been very defense heavy, at least in the United States, but very governmentally heavy, just because they're relatively expensive. You want to go get a whole bunch of the state of blah 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 or the region of blah blah blah. Well, here's a bunch of money that you're going to have to go find, and those resources are usually left to really big actors. It makes a lot more sense for everyone to put this into a tapestry and to say, I need to see this area, the best information we have today, because I've got this issue that I need to deal with today. And here's some money to get me that little piece. And I think it's wonderful that they're moving more towards this, because before that, you kind of needed to know all the different vendors if you didn't want to use one of the open source ones, obviously, or free available ones, to go, well, okay, I need to go talk to this company, and then I need to go talk to that company and figure out, what they can do. Because really, you're space based in the sense of spatial, of I'm interested in this problem here, so give me what you got, the world, So it does make a lot more sense for us to move in that direction.
And then you tie in the fact that you've got different spectra that different sensors can provide. And so if you have a hook in, like with SkyFi, into different data sets, you can, if your AI knows what you need in terms of different spectra or different locations, you can go and check which has those and pull as you want to. Now, I would not do this, at least in the near future, because I don't trust agents not to spend my money for me. But other people are much more trusting, and probably rightly so. I'm the old guy who just isn't willing to do it yet.
Just got a little bit of feeling of Esri Credits situation when they first launched. Like, what's it going to cost me to click on this button? It's like, I need to do this. This costs credits. How many credits are we talking about here? We're talking $10 of credits, $10,000 worth of credits. I really need to know that answer before I click on that button.
But of course, if you don't want to let your agent do it, you can go to SkyFi and find out for yourself, or OpenConstellation if you want data in a quick turnaround. And that's it for the news. This week in the Web Corner, we have talked about CyArk for a long time on the podcast. Sue and I think Sue was there. You weren't there whenever we did the CyArk project up in Moundsville, were you?
I was there.
You were there. Okay.
Correct.
I couldn't remember
if you were giant CyArk scanner.
Yes, I couldn't remember if you were out doing field work that day or not. But we've worked with CyArk a long time ago as one of the projects at WVU. That was, no, I'm not going to say the year. But CyArk has released a new collection, their Tapestry collection for 250 years of the United States. And they focus on, in this tapestry, things that you would think are kind of representative of what was around 250 years ago, the changes in the U.S., and some of those just historic representations, because CyArk is and has for a long time focused on cultural heritage. And so they have, of course, a lot of data for this. Now, in this, they're not just providing point clouds. They are moving more into that Gaussian splat type of area that we've been talking about. And you can view all of these as splats in browser and basically tour these various locations. And the link that we have in the show notes has links to locations throughout the East Coast that were, representative of our history over the last 250 years in the United States that you can go and check out.
Yeah, it's really cool, the breadth and depth of what they're choosing to use, because it's not places you would see in the place-based storytelling we know. So it's going to be a great resource.
So I'm here today with Albie and William, who are with Overture Maps. Thank you for joining me. And we'll start off with the broad question, of course, even though it's only been a year since we've talked to Overture Maps, of what Overture Maps is and what your goal is as a data provider.
I could go first. So, we're a collaborative mapping organization that is really trying to generate a solid base map, so do things more efficiently. One of the things that frustrated me over my 27-year career in the government was that we would consistently buy a lot of the same data, and we would replicate and triplicate. And at some point, you start looking at this same building over and over again, and you realize, like, hey, there's got to be a better way. And so I think the model that Overture is presenting and working on, where, we're presenting a solid base map for the world to use with GERS IDs, the Global Entity Reference System ID, that you can then layer your data on top of, and you don't have to continually remake the data, it's profoundly needed, and it's also hugely beneficial for things like digital twins in the future.
One of the nice things, of course, about Overture Maps is the fact that it's an organization, but it has the push of many different proprietary organizations behind it. So getting to that data that's everybody can utilize, whether it's for commercial purposes or general open purposes, but having that need, that recognized need, and that push kind of driving things forward. So how do you guys, as people in Overture, kind of respond to that push and pull of everybody wanting to have the data and these organizations saying this is where we need to go?
So I think as the product leader of Overture, that's a great question, because we take product seriously in Overture, and what you're describing is kind of what product needs to do, like understand the needs of these users that come together in Overture and in the ecosystem outside of Overture, frankly. Understand what they're trying to achieve and kind of solving this incredibly exciting puzzle of what everyone, the ecosystem, the members could contribute, want to contribute, the work they are doing, have been doing, the data that has been available openly already, and how this all fits together to actually make something that is helpful across the entire membership. I mean, we are more than 50 organizations in Overture at this point. And so you can only imagine the different types of organization and the different interests and needs they have. So I would say, like, we have, for example, we have data providers, and they are interested in reaching a broader market by way of making their data interoperable with Overture. There are, technology companies like our founding members who are really in the business of kind of trying to make mapping products for all different types of consumer or business users, and who are trying to coordinate and on, like, how can we actually, as Will said, not do the same things over and over again, and rather make it open and collaborative. And then you also have organizations who are inside or outside of Overture, who are users and who just want the data for their very specific purpose. Could be a GIS use case, could be building an app for places discovery, could be like a navigation use case very specifically. And so part of the challenge that I appreciate about Overture and about my role is to kind of think through what is it that we can do that helps these organizations and across their needs, and it goes back to, it always keeps going back to our mission of like being this common ground map data platform that provides a framework for people to collaborate on and provides a data and ID system that where people can achieve these different things they want to do across the industry.
Whenever we look at most data, and of course, we're here at the Esri UC, we are at a place where people are talking about applications in terms of software, but also applications in terms of how they're utilizing it. But behind all of those in this context is the data. And so the ability to have the consistency of one focus behind these data sets, I think, is one of the key takeaways from Overture, for me at least. Yes, there's a lot of organizations behind it. There's a lot of push to make it better, but just the fact that whenever you pick up an Overture data set, it doesn't matter if it's the roads or if it's the buildings or whatever, it's going to have some consistency that you're going to be able to utilize from app to app, from data set to use case to use case. And so and this is something, because of course we've only been talking to the CEO in the past, I think, and haven't really gotten down to this level of detail, but how do you guys sit around and decide some of those structures, both in terms of, what is already there, but also as you're bringing in new data sets?
So everything we do is really membership led. And we're not big enough to do this on our own. And so, if there's a push from our members to decide, they're going to kind of drive and determine where we go, and they give us that kind of vector, if you will. And so, that's where, when people ask, well, why would we join Overture? It's like, because you get to help shape the future and where we're going with things, right? Maybe you're doing something that, we're not even thinking about, or none of our members are thinking about, but you have a really niche capability where you could help shape that through like schema extensions, through, cross-GUR initiatives, right? And so that's really how we utilize, or how we look at the next big thing. Is there's the combination of what our members are asking. Obviously our steering committee members kind of set that strategic direction, but everybody has a voice at Overture, and that's what I think is pretty profound. Is from the biggest company to the smallest, you have an opportunity to speak up and actually drive that change, if you will.
And maybe to add from a data perspective, I think what I learned is that we have these 6 themes, and they're across those themes. I think the way it's structured and what has been structured from the start has been really agnostic to different types of use cases, because in the end, it always goes back to kind of what is the built infrastructure of the world, what are the entities that we identify, and how can all other data attach to that. And so if I think about our data model, what I think is critical is that it is very focused enough so we're actually able to collaborate around it, but it's also robust enough so that every use case that we just mentioned and every other data set can be built on top of it and associated with those real world entities. It's really a structure that has proven to be extremely useful in that sense.
Overture is still young. Barely, we're talking 4 years, or is it 5 years now? About 4. As you say, you went from, 12 or 13 original founding organizations to now 50 partners. What are some of the conversations that you're having about the future of Overture at this point? Because you have those key data themes, but as you are bringing in new organizations, what are some of the things that you're thinking about in terms of the future?
I would start with saying that even within those 6 themes, there are still work to do. In a perfect world, we would know about all the buildings, the roads, the places that exist in the world, so that it gives a GERS ID to everyone for everything they want to do, right? Now, on some of the themes like buildings, I think the acceptance is that, or people have recognized the data as fairly complete. For others, like our places theme, we actually would be the first ones to admit that it's not complete. And we've spent a lot of effort actually this year on, advancing it and increasing the coverage and quality. And we've been focusing a lot on the US and food and shopping categories within places as a showcase to make the point, hey, we can actually get to a really high coverage quality data set. And now, so to start with, I think that's where a lot of the conversations still go. It's like, how can we actually get to a really high quality and coverage across all themes data sets? So that's the first one. Then the next conversation, and what we will do more and more over the next year or years, is basically bringing the idea of interoperability into any type of data set that is associated with the GERS IDs and can be associated with the GERS IDs. So, for example, if I have rich information about a place, I want to be able to share this and like openly, proprietarily, like in a closed commercial model, whatever it is, I want to be able to associate this data set with the GERS ID of the place and make it available to my customers, the ecosystem, the community, in a way, in a schema that is well understood and that is also interoperable, right? And so one of the things we are working on, and that I think will play a really big role in completing the product vision for Overture, is what we call extensions. And it is about being able to make not just the base map interoperable, creating this ID system, but also making, giving a tool to our members and the ecosystem to standardize any type of data that is compatible to or works with on top of GERS IDs and the Overture map. And I would just add, because some people, when I say this, they're concerned, Overture is going to be a commercial entity creating a marketplace for data. That's not where we're going. It's really that we're creating a collaboration format for people to come in who have data sets that they want to make interoperable on top of Overture, on top of our maps with GERS IDs, and then creating visibility in terms of a catalog of what these data sets are, and helping people discover them and use them, because that's we led with this idea of eliminating the conflation tax, and this really like kind of closes the loop on what we need to do to do that.
And I mean, that goes back to that core mission from the beginning of what Overture was to not be this marketplace, but to be a place where these organizations who aren't as focused on, the monetization of the data as they are of the products from the data. And so that's, they had all this data that they weren't worried about making money off of. And so the fact that you were able to use that as kind of the foundation that you've built on for the last 4 years has been just amazing as an opportunity that you just if we look back 10 or 15 years ago, it's not something you would have thought about. All these companies were buying other companies to build data, and then they realize, wait, the data isn't what we want to sell, and you have this creation. And so it was just a unique time, I think, whenever this was all coming together, which, has given us a great new product. And, it sits between these other areas of proprietary and completely open, between someone deciding this is the data you're going to get, or it's the Wild West, put whatever day you want to get in there. You have this ability to have a structure, an agreed upon structure, something that you can still use the relational capabilities of any of these products or whatever you're using as your backend to bring in those attached attributes. And so it's just, always been a great idea from the inception, I think. That's why we've always been excited about it. Okay.
Agreed.
So thank you for sitting down and talking with me today. Is there anything else you would like to highlight about Overture, or say where people can find more about Overture?
Yeah, so you can go to overturemaps.org. That's our site, and it lists all the documentation, all kinds of really great information about GERS IDs, about becoming a member and how you can become a member. And I'd say if you have any questions, though, the team is really forward leaning and is there to answer questions. And we'd also love to hear how people are using Overture data. That's one of the big things. We have the opportunity to share that with a wider audience, because one of the things since coming on board, one of my goals has been really to advertise and advocate for Overture, because there's a lot of people that don't really know about us yet. And so, yeah, we welcome those conversations with folks, and just thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks. On to the Events Corners. As always, we encourage you to check out these events and others around the world.
RGS IBG Annual International Conference will be taking place September 1st through the 4th in London.
GIS Pro 2026 is taking place October 12th through the 15th in Milwaukee.
The AGU Fall Meeting is taking place December 7th through 11th in San Francisco.
Intergeo was on the... one of the news items is a giant ad for Intergeo, which is going to be in September in Munich. I forgot the dates, though.
Yeah. So if you want to go to Intergeo, check that out. Of course, if you'd like us to add your event to the podcast, send us an email to podcast@veryspatial.com.
If you'd like to reach us individually, I can be reached at sue@veryspatial.com.
I can be reached at barb@veryspatial.com.
You can reach me at frank@veryspatial.com.
And you can contact me at Kinda Spatial. And of course, you can find all of our contact information over at veryspatial.com/contacts.
As always,
We're the folks from VerySpatial.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks.